Hey everybody, how you doing? Thank you for coming, going through the Seattle type weather to be here. We have someone from Seattle today. We have Molly and Briskin reading two fantastic writers. I'll go for their bios real quick because Briskin has one of the best bios I've encountered. Briskin is a queer Jew from Virginia. Has lived in Seattle for many years. That's E. And Molly Gaudry is the author of first novels We Take Me Apart and Desire a Haunting. She teaches at Stony Brook University during the academic year and at the Yale Writers Workshop every summer. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to take Molly as a teacher, she's fantastic at taking craft techniques and pushing them beyond conventional Western boundaries of what we think of as creative nonfiction, what we think of as structure and form, and how we can push those further and create and develop our own voice. And is a writer who embodies that in E's work, pushing the idea of linear narratives, of flowing art instead of left to right, or progressive, or different linear ideas. So these are concepts that we can use for our own creativity to express our own voice in entertaining and artful ways. So with that, is going to read from E's book Orange, and then Molly's going to read a little bit. So take it away.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Molly. Can everyone hear me okay? Got to get a thumbs up. Okay, excellent. All right, so I am just going to share my screen here. And so this is a book I usually read page by page, and today I'm going to read it number by number, and you'll see what I mean. My dog died today. It was unexpected. 1 hour it was barking, then it stopped. I'm used to having something this size in my house, making noises, disturbing my sleep. I have books and a speaker, blankets, bones on the floor. Why can't things keep going as they were? My dog died today, definitely not yesterday. The driver was a kid and his text said hamburgers. White bumper, red splatter, tufts of fur. My dog died today, mostly metaphorically, not that she didn't, but that he hadn't been alive. I don't want to talk about results of electrocardiogram. Let's play 20 questions. Is it mineral? Is it mammal? No, don't answer. Is it a dog? My dog died today, allegorically. Not that it didn't, but it left the world to live. My dog died today. My friends have tired of it. That fuzz wiry rat thing, guzzled shine bees, my tail drooler. Was that even a dog? My dog died today and tomorrow and Wednesday. 20 years ago, you are still dead. I don't miss it. There's the cleanup to do. Then I'll go out. My dog died today, which is a thing that isn't true. It was more of an insect than a dog, which is a thing that isn't true. A thought is more an insect than a dog. My dog, who was a spider, died yesterday. I was restless at night. Its legs were hairy. I crushed it. I got up to get myself a little drink. My dog, had it existed, would die today. I can tell because the sky looks like gray gum. My dog. My dog died today. This isn't a Borscht Bell routine. It didn't dye its ears or its tuchus or a hind claw. It didn't forefoot over some Rubicon. It wasn't reborn as the mother of the father of all of Rome. My dog died today, and before my dog died, it had a few things to say. I don't know. My dog died today and not yesterday, not the day before, today. Dead dog. My dog died today out of boredom. He was tired of hearing which day it died. What does that mean even, my dog? My dog, which is to say a dog that lived on my couch, died today, which is to say a sofa dog stopped living. This happened today, which Samuel Johnson defines as the time of light that is happening in the present. He doesn't. My dog died today, and all night I keep walking the curves, grabbing dog shit, dangling collars from my hand. My dog died today, and it turns out that no dog is not the same thing as one dog no longer. A study suggests we become accustomed very quickly to the good in our lives. We feel bereft when that good passes on. This fur tuft, remove it. It fetches memories. Or will I miss it after I lint roll it away? When your dog dies, the world decides to divide itself into two, the world of people who understand grief and those who don't. Where's your comeback soon now, heartbreak wine? Where's your ear pricked for the click of claws? Some of my friends have the mistaken impression that my dog must have been very large. Once, due to complicated circumstances, a dog I loved didn't see me for 2 years. And still, when I entered his new apartment building, he smelled me through the door from the end of a long hall, and he howled his meow, and he danced his me dance. I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's how it went. It's not that I don't believe in coincidence. It's that I believe in my dog. You really think your dog is the warmest, fuzziest? Your dog's half a dewclaw to my dog. My dog died, and the gray squirrel sleeps unnoticed. And now I'm thinking about how much of socialization is an enthusiasm sink. I've forgotten what I was saying here. What day is this? A human craves immortality. A dog just wants to play, to hurtle itself against your person, to mock sink its teeth into a friend's fur, to catch the ball more times than you can throw. Last night, Lassie and I played her favorite game together. To miss play is to miss joy. I miss keep working, my keep working dog. This is long, and I'm thinking of how my fingers will respond. Repetition, fetch the ball, fetch, drop. First, this snippet from my memory. Is it memory that makes pain? Next table over at the shop where I'm writing, a little boy holding a small-eared, enormous-footed, brown-eyed bear. He keeps putting it on his head and then yelling, "He climbed on my head! He climbed on my head again!" He tells me the bear is a baby that he saved from the toy crate. I look over. The crate holds 2 alligators. Brave guy. Now he's leaving and says, "Bye-bye." He holds a muffin in his hands. When his dad stuffs the bear into the toy crate, he pays no mind. A dog is the opposite of a child, I'm thinking. A dog playing with a toy is a dog playing with a toy. Total focus without bids for attention. Although a dog playing with a toy will still be focused on its owner. A hand holds the future. Jacket? Treat. To my left, 2 women are talking. They are friends with the person who has my name. Now I listen to them the way you would. I hear sound mumbles and then puppy, and then sound mumbles and then puppy. Each puppy turns my head every time. Unless I stop now, stop writing. I'll finish writing before I finish reading. You finished. Here are books, not esoteric about your life. The Other End of the Leash, Inside of a Dog, How to Speak Dog, What is a Dog, The Dog in Natural History, I Am Not a Brain, The Future of the Mind, Intuition Pumps. I haven't read them. Today, I read them. If a dog read, what would it enjoy reading? Strategies for food procurement, signs that person's almost home, ways to lower a car's windows until they disappear. I read those books a little. I read them. One of the advantages of wolves over dogs, a wolf can learn to pull ropes in a particular pattern. One experiment was vaguely, pull this rope, pull that rope, pull this other one. The wolves all learned faster than the dogs. Because wolves have to pull apart bodies. They drag them over snow or into forests, away from wolves. When we talk of a dog, nearby dogs' ears prick up. They don't worry, though, what we're saying about them, whether we think they are fetching or nice. But dogs have part of the awareness of a creature that knows itself. Daniel Dennett is a philosopher that I know of from. Dennett believes, if I'm understanding, that consciousness is materialist, made of functions. Like if you turn on enough functions, selfhood happens. A dog in this construction is sort of conscious. Does this construct change the nature of my loss? I don't know. You died. On my conscience won't return you. You died. No, you didn't. You departed. Something large seized the withers of my soul. You died. It was an imposition. You died, and it has altered my stance, your stance. A sleeve, a rope. It's part playbow. Forepaws bent, haunches up. The way dogs stalk up slowly, stealthily, it's not stealthy, not at all. Like Orson Welles in Touch of Evil, hiding plainly behind a slender pole. Last night, I was reading more about you. Linnaeus classified species by teeth. If I added a few teeth, would it change me? I have 31, you 42. 11 more. If I, born a woman, except I wasn't, why I think I was. If I, from utero, with utero, can become something else, is a dog such a faraway possibility? Why can't I add teeth to meet Linnaeus? I could add a whatchamacallit organ to my nose. I would need to add olfactory receptors. Could a cell be implanted? 215 million? If only I had dogged ears. I want the kind you had, determined. Which way did they go, down or up? About time. Does a year feel the same to us? Out the window of the coffee shop, a woman is walking her husky. His hair and her cockles stand straight up. You died. Today was so long ago. All those thoughts twisted in grief. Was there a minute in the last 8 hours when I didn't think dog, dog, when I didn't brush my hand out for your chest? If I became one of your species, there's the matter of fur. Surely there's a dog version of Rogaine out there somewhere. Surely somewhere is a full body wig of fur. If I were you, my day would not change much. The same walking, some more napping, constant snacks. I might have more success finding catch partners. Is it easy to catch with a mouth? I saw a video once of a Chihuahua that peed during paw stands. The message it left on the lamppost: I'm tall. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, E. It's always such a pleasure to hear you read.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm just going to read a little bit from my first book, We Take Me Apart. Let's see. So, my mother was not supposed to have a child, so I made it difficult for her to retain employment. It was sometimes as if I never existed. I was never taught to read or write. There was always so much else to do: the sewing, tending garden, selling its offerings, the cleaning of our living spaces, which, while small, were not so humble as to be neglected. It was not always work. Because there were so few others in our lives, we were starved for attention. So Mother made up a game called flattering. To play, I had to pay her a compliment, after which she would say thank you and give me a thing she had found or been given. The yellow rubber innard of a frog's eye, bloody feathers, a fistful of water. Although we were never rich or well attended with such playthings, I was pleased. Springs, when the sky was pink, when all the out of doors were bright blossoms of pink, I would have liked to play. But Mother took odd jobs cleaning and brought me along to learn the game of princess. In my favorite house, there were copper pots hanging from the kitchen walls. The kitchen was closed to the woman of the house. Cook had rules. One was children should eat cookies quietly at the table while mothers cleaned. Those 3 spring days, the game of princess actually made sense, but there was still the rest of the season. I had never encountered rudeness, but from spring sprung fine, tall ladies with short tempers, whose words I scrubbed away, desperate for them to relieve us of their gazes so we could return again to our game, in which the trials were dirt and spotlessness our single goal. Summers, there were children to play with, but their finery embarrassed me. I had overheard a mother define play clothes as rags, disposable, of no consequence if misplaced. At home, rags were not disposable. If misplaced, the consequence was dirt. Fall was when children returned to school. I was grateful to escape them, their mockery of my appearance, which mother said was not so bad. One year, when she came home from market, she frowned and said, "You are a woman now, and there will be no more games. Do you understand?" As there was only one correct answer, I said it. That night, instead of dinner, she said, "Sit between my knees," and when I did, she withdrew from her purse several red leaves that she wove into my hair. She said, "You're a queen, my dear, and this is your crown. Have pride." I smiled so that she could not see. She reached for something, placed it in my lap. It was a book. I did not know how to use it until she said, "Go on, open it." And all over those pages were photographs of the world in black and white and many shades of green. In the weeks following, my crown fell apart until at last there was only a single red leaf, which I placed between the pages of my favorite photograph. I did not know it, but the photograph was of America, the Statue of Liberty. I did not know that one day, many years later, I would stand inside the Statue of Liberty and say, "How lasting is your crown, my dear. Have pride." So I'm skipping ahead a little bit. This is the part when a mysterious stranger shows up in the middle of the night. In a different version, it was not a pea, but a cocoa bean. You came to us in the night, soaked in cold and trembling with fatigue. Mother brought you inside where the last of our candles were burning and prepared for you a bed of many mattresses. In the morning, she asked how you had slept. You nodded, but I was the one who did the beds and knew you had not slept on those mattresses. You had slept on the floor. I had never seen a being beautiful as you, who, in passing my cocoa bean test, brought me great inspiration. The dresses I fashioned from that point forward were winged creations made from the excesses of water on hand, each drop sewn one on top of the next, so that the texture was rippling as a pond beneath the moon. The dresses took on the buoyancy of flotation devices and hung in the air around us as I made them. I saw you reach up to touch the hem of the highest one, and when it burst, your hand frozen in the air, you were as wet as the night of your arrival. The children who were to wear those dresses did not cause them to burst, but went away like small butterflies. One day, you indicated by the look on your face that you had never seen such wearing. After many months, when mother was away cleaning homes because it was spring again, you said, "How would you like to go away from here and travel the world with me making these dresses?" And I said, "I didn't know you could speak." And you said, "Don't be stupid. Of course I can speak, but I've been in mourning." And I said, "What is mourning?" And you said, "Suffering." And I said, "What is suffering?" And you said, "Imagine there were food in this house and not just cocoa beans, but so much food you couldn't eat it all." And I said, "Don't be stupid." And you said, "That would be the opposite of suffering." And I did not understand, but said, "I see." When mother came home, I told her we were leaving in the morning, and she said, "I can't force you to stay. Tell me what you would like." Because I knew that all she had was cocoa, I said, "May I have cocoa, please?" I had never seen snow, but I had heard, dreamed, imagined great pillows of it warm as a tongue. Imagine my surprise when on our journey from mother's home to yours, you took me on a boat from which we looked for whales. The only boat I had ever touched was paper, folded by mother's hands, 2 twigs tucked in as representations of her, me. You were furious with our captain, but I was delighted. The great cut-shaped mounds were wondrous as anything I had ever seen, chunks like chocolate. I could have eaten them. I was so happy. Happier still when the waves pounded all sides of the boat and below deck the crash of our bodies woke us. Happiest when at last we disembarked. It was raining. It was light. It was fresh. When I remember you, that is what I remember. It was raining, it was light, it was fresh, it was fall. It was wet red leaves stuck in clumps to the bottoms of my canvas sneakers and your rubber galoshes. We shared a menthol cigarette from the freezer and walked hand in hand to the corner store for butter for pancakes beneath a bright yellow umbrella the morning after our midnight arrival to your home. You took me in your arms and said, "Welcome home." And it was all of it delicious. We were open mouths on mouths, hands on inner thighs, fingers spreading toward action, fingers spreading like rhubarb in the garden. We were on the porch attached to the kitchen, and I turned my head into the night and saw the rhubarb poking through the soil, and I felt like the soil, and your tongue felt like the rhubarb, and your tongue felt like the so slow melting or shaving of the ice from the mountain, and its edges broke into song and snow that settled as a soil blanket tucked wet and warm, and it was only your tongue between us then, and in my throat, I felt we were two lakes meeting for the first time at the open mouth of a river, and you were no longer stern and unfamiliar, but consuming and radiant, and I felt consumed and I felt radiant. Beneath our bodies, a loose plank that sounded like the click of two spoons in a creaky drawer sliding open. I felt beneath you like you were the drawer and I was the spoon. I felt beneath you like you were a spoon and I was an egg ready to hatch. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you both. That was, it hits you in the heart place. So both of you touched upon a concept that I want to bring up in terms of writing process. E read one of the fragments that he created. Dogs just want to play. At the beginning of play kind of came up. So, when it can be it can be tense, sometimes uncomfortable, if not always uncomfortable. How do you bring in play? Oh, she frozen up. They frozen up there.
Yeah.
E, can you hear us?
Oh no.
I can hear you sort of. Have I unfrozen yet?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. I could hear parts of it. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Cool. Molly, how does play come into play when you're writing?
Okay. So I actually know a little bit of the answer for Ian. Anybody who was in class last semester where we read Eve's book, a little bit of that came up in our Q&A too. For me, this book was written with word lists. So I just generated a bunch of random word lists from words from Gertrude Stein's Tender Buttons. And I just wrote, I just basically connected the dots between those random words. And after enough of those were generated, it was one word. I had lists of 10. So, and I wrote 10 lines and then one word per line and then just, smashed it all together. So for me, all 3 of my books have been written that way. And I'm working on a new one and I tried to do it without a word list. I couldn't. I had to go back to word lists. So for me, it's playful. The words sort of dictate the story, and I just sort of do the work of patching it together. Hopefully we can get E back. The book, if you could tell. So you read the book with number 1 goes here, and then you flip to page number 2, flip to page number 3, 4, and you make your way to the end of the book, and then you actually read it backwards to go
I've got a copy.
Yeah.
You all can pass it around and take a look at the hard copy of it.
I have the backup somewhere.
Okay. So then you read the book backwards toward the front of the book, and then you read the book front and make your way back, and then this way. So you sort of zigzag your way through the book. And I wrote one of the blurbs for that book, and I said that reading it kind of feels like being taken for a walk by a dog. You're holding the leash, but the dog is we're going to go over here, and now we're going to go over here, and you're just okay, let's just see where this goes. But yeah, hopefully once we get you back, we can talk about the process of writing Orange.
That's great. I like the idea of walking a dog. There's on one end, there's the you're predetermined to read left to right. And then on the other hand, when it's experimental and nonlinear, you want to decode or solve. But when you relax into that book and let the rhythm kind of take place, it has its own narrative. So yeah, back to what you were saying about those devices that you used, the word lists. Is that part of a creative do you kind of, like, what's the chicken or the egg? Do you come up with a device that inspires your own creativity, or do they kind of happen? How do you work with devices to inspire creativity?
I don't know. You know, I just, for me, I had a book was due, and I was nowhere near making that deadline. So it was an act of desperation. It was sheer desperation, but it worked. And then because it worked, I did it again. And then because it worked again, I keep. Now here I am. I feel like I can't do that otherwise.
How much of the structure was the beginning of this work, and how much of what did the device come first? Did the ideas come first? Did they work together? How did the nonlinear structure play in creating this?
Well, it was really just an experiment. I had a physical notebook and I started writing. I was thinking, I'm always writing a lot or trying to write a big thing, so let me just write a little bit. And so I just kept writing across the top of a notebook, and then I got to the end and I turned it around and wrote backwards. And once I had done, so I just sort of kept doing that. And once I'd done it, I remember very clearly having this thought, like, is this a thing? Could this be a thing? Should I waste my time typing this up? And I decided, well, I'll try. And so then I did. But then once it was there, it was like I had provided myself with things that I could play with, because I could look at one line and another line and decide, did I want them to be there on the same page like that? So there was a lot of randomness in it. I mean, there was a lot of deliberateness as well, but at the beginning I was just writing.
That's great. That's great. Let's open it up to people. Anybody have a question or a thought that came to them during this reading? Okay.
Hi, kind of for both of you, how does the idea of genre come in when you're writing? Like, is there a specific thing, like I want to make a poem right now, or a story? Is there anything like structurally like that you think of when you're writing?
That's a good question for us. You can go ahead.
I think sometimes, I mean, I definitely do write poems sometimes where I sit down thinking I'm going to write a poem, but I also think genre can really get in the way, because again, I think as soon as you have an idea of what you're doing, you shut down what you can do. So that can be hard. I often shut down what I'm trying to do, but I'm trying not to.
Yeah. So, what I read from is, a novel in verse. So there's not a lot of, it's poems on the page, but so it's like, the pages look like poems, but the story reads like, a novel. And then this one is the second one. The sequel is a ghost story. So then it also looks like ghost text, a lot of erasure. So on those levels, there's, magic dresses in the first one, and then we have a ghost, and actually several ghosts in the second book, but then also the, poem / long narrative. For me, I started as a very sort of mainstream traditional literary fiction writer, and just wasn't getting published. And so when I started sending out like the tightest paragraphs from those stories, I got published as a prose poet first, and I just, 20-page story out the window, but that was a great paragraph, and just tighten that up, right? So a lot of my early publications were in poetry, and because of that, I ended up getting an MFA in poetry because I felt like a fraud. I was like, I don't know anything about poetry, and everybody keeps asking me about poems. So I went to school to study it a little bit, and now here we are. So yeah, so let the project, let the story, let the characters, let the language drive what it ends up being. Yeah.
Good. Cool. That's my question.
For E, Do you have any pets now?
No, I don't. But there's still a little bit of a cut on my lip where my friend's poodle sort of tried to hug me the wrong way.
Thank you. It's nice to see you both again. This is a hi. It's a question for both of you. Personally, how do you know when something that you've written is done? Do you kind of rely on your own belief of like, this is it, I don't think I could put any more into it? Or do you find that you wait until someone else tells you themselves like, no, this is definitely done? If that makes sense.
It makes sense. Molly, do you want to take it first?
My answer is you should always have more than one project or one piece of writing going at the same time, so that when you find yourself, after a certain point, you find yourself, you keep working on this other thing. Like you wake up and you only have this much time to do any writing or reading or whatever, and you just keep going toward this thing. And it's been a while since you've dealt with that other one. That's when it's done. And it just means that you are done with it. Your energy is going in this direction. Once that happens, you start something new so that this becomes the one that's farther along. And then you have something else that's going much newer. But I think that's the only way I know how to make that happen.
That's good advice. I think the answer for me is I really don't. It's really hard for me to let go of stuff. Like I'll just keep reworking it and reworking it and reworking it. And this book now feels done just because it's been published for a while. But I still, if I look at it, there's a temptation to change things. I guess, but I do think there's a part of you. I mean, I'm very, very I'm very focused in every little tiny detail of things. And I think if I just get to the point where there's nothing that hugely bugs me in a line, then that line is done. I wish I had a better answer. I have no idea.
Actually makes me feel better.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I once heard a teacher say that when you change something back to what you had it before, and you're doing that more than a couple of times, leave it alone.
I have a question kind of in a similar vein for both. When do you when you read over your work after you're done, when do you stop cringing? And how much input from other people would you take from people who not like professors, but family and friends? Do you think that I guess there's two questions in that question, but yeah, okay.
What was the very last part of that when you said not a professor, but
family and friends, if you have them read your stuff and they're like, I don't get it, do you take that to heart or something?
Well, I think what I've learned is, I don't know, I'm sure you've all been in workshops where there's a bunch of different people and everyone has critiques and some are good and some feel maybe less relevant. And I think what I decided is you have to listen to the person who you can tell is on the side of the work. And I don't mean that people are against your work, but I mean people who, if someone seems to really resonate with it, the person who's seeing the thing that you see tells you that this little detail is wrong, then you listen to that because they know they're sort of with the work. Whereas someone else might be incredibly smart about work in general and a really good writer and maybe even not wrong about your work, but it's not resonating with them, and it's better not to listen to them. And I do think that friends and family can be not exactly dangerous, but it can be difficult that way because you might have a great friend who just is never going to get your work or even really like it the way that you need to make good work. So I do think you have to be careful who you show things to.
I think probably both E and I have been on the receiving end of I don't get it. What is this about? Or what is it? Is it a novel? Is it a novel? That kind of thing. I think E's answer is a really good answer, actually, that when it comes to friends and family, the people who understand what you're trying to do, or that you feel like they understand what you're trying to do, to the best of their ability. But yeah, that's the advice that you can take a little bit more. Yeah, Bobby, what do you think? You want to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, find your people,
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I'm here. Molly's one of my people. She helped push me further with things. And I can tell you right now, my family doesn't get anything I do. And they're more discouraging than helpful. So I'm not going to give it to them to read, but I can give it to your coworker. Even people you don't know well, they're helpful. Cass back there has helped me with my work. You run into people that get your work if you don't. So yeah, find your people. That's what school is good for. Yeah. Who has other questions? Anybody working on a narrative that they're pulling apart the convention of it and messing around with it? Are you right now? What are some of the challenges you're running into?
I guess the biggest challenge I'm running into is figuring out the order, like how I want to go back and forth between different emotions, what I want the reader to remember and focus on, and how to get them to remember that while still keeping the general flow of the narrative, but also still choosing to go back and forth between different things.
Y'all have thoughts of that?
I defer to E on all issues of ordering.
Honestly, I just got lucky with my order. I don't think I have advice for you. Be your own people. That's my advice.
Move it around, like cut them out, put them on the wall, put them on the floor, spread them around, and just work with it. Probably not helpful.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Susie does that where it makes you write it all on, like walk into it, where you just put the index cards or on the wall or on the floor, step into the fact. Yeah. What else? Any thoughts? Yeah.
This is, for E. In orange, you have like footnotes. Do you think that footnotes are like necessary, or do you think, or like I know obviously you put them in, but in a fragmented piece, like in general, do you think footnotes are necessary?
Oh, I think definitely not. I think the footnotes, it was part of the play for me, and then it was also, I was maybe a little bit sort of making fun of myself for at times caring very much about small accuracies. There are other times when the footnotes aren't, like sometimes when I pull in a fiction footnote, I'm taking some liberties with sort of the way I'm reading that line. I guess, actually, I'm curious a little bit about your question, like, is there something in particular you're thinking the footnotes would be helpful for?
Oh, it was just because I remember one where you referenced like 13 ways of looking at a blackbird, and I just so happened to have just read that in a poetry class, and I was like, oh. And then like in the footnotes it said like, oh, it references 13 ways of looking at a blackbird, and I was wondering if it was necessary to point it out, or if people would have found it out themselves. I mean, I only just so happened to, because I literally just read it like before, but.
Oh yeah. You know what? I think I make that decision up again sort of every time. There are some things in the book, like there's some reference to Camus, The Stranger, which I haven't, I didn't footnote that. It's sort of hard. I think I footnoted that one because I thought it would maybe be funnier that way. I don't know if I succeeded. But I think that's a really hard one, because I do think one of my goals with this book was I wanted people to get it. So, and I had a reader, a friend of mine who really helped me in terms of telling me like when something happened and it was confusing to the reader. And I wanted it to be friendly to the reader, which I know is maybe a strange thing to say, because I think a lot of people think the book is not very friendly to the reader. But I wouldn't have wanted you to read that line And then years later, been like, oh, that's what it was. I just wanted to give it to you. And of course, you already knew though. But
It was funny. I like that line.
thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? Thoughts? Questions? Cass?
Yeah, so I keep thinking about your answer about how thinking in terms of genre can shut down what your work can be. And I guess I'm just wondering about more general thoughts about like when you're working on a project and when you're in the middle of a project, how do you keep what's ahead of you and what you can do with what you're working on expansive, and how do you keep yourself from shutting down what you can do? And I mean, it's in relation to your answer, but I'd be interested to hear from both of y'all.
Molly, do you wanna go first on that one?
So Cass, you're asking, how do you open up, how do you create possibility, or how do you allow yourself to move into possibilities as opposed to listen to that voice that is saying, don't do that, don't do that. Is that right? Basically. Yeah, it's hard. For me, I mean, the word list is productive because it forces more weirdness and more weirdness. So like, for instance, in the last scene that I wrote, this person's place of work, a factory, a story factory, they show up to work, but the word list ended up making me write a scene in which they get to work, the factory has burned down, and the factory manager is sitting on the curb by the ice cream truck that caused the fire, and they are roasting shrimp on a stick and then send everybody home for the day. That may or may not make it into the, the thing, but the word list, kind of made that happen. And it's fun. For me, I would never have, that never would have happened from my own brain. I could not have come up with that on my own. So in that way, I really sort of trust that process for me. And there are other kinds of constraints that might help open up possibilities. Like prompts can be really productive in that regard. Just, follow these opportunities that come along, but it is hard. It's really hard to, in my case, I wrote this scene and then I was like, what is this? What this is? So there goes the day, so I don't know. It's hard. I don't know. E?
Yeah, I think, well, I am, so you often start from a word list, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you write,
Yeah.
I must have missed that when I was
Yeah.
just taking a little nap. Yeah, I do think it's hard. I think what really helps is to pay attention to your own boredom. Because once you just start to think, again, when you think I'm trying to do this thing, or oh, I'm so bored of this, or like, who even cares about this, then just grab something from somewhere else. So if you've got a word list, that helps. What's really helpful is if you've written enough that you have stuff, maybe even that you once loved, but you're just sort of not doing anything with, you can just go back and, grab a sentence from 2019 and shove it in and see what happens. But I do think it's hard.
Else have any thoughts or questions they want to pose to E or Molly? Feeling good? Feeling inspired? I'm feeling inspired. Yeah, well, like that, stay away from your own boredom, right? That's just kind of the creative process to keep yourself engaged. Cool. Well, what do you think? Do you have any parting thoughts you want to throw at people?
Molly, your writing is so beautiful. That's the.
Oh, now we're just like being fans. This is no. I thank you for joining us for this. You're fantastic. You're one of my favorites, and I cannot wait. Actually, there's a question. What are you working on now? What's next?
Oy. I don't know. There are a couple of projects that I'm working on. I'm trying to be messier. Like, I think this book ended up being very tidy. So I'm trying to be messy, maybe graphically as well. And honestly, nothing that I'm working on right now is going that well. It's just my headspace is not really quite in the right place. So I'm trying. I'll try not to disappoint you.
Okay. All right. Well, I will talk to you soon. We can touch base. But yeah, anything that you want to say before we go?
No, just thank you so much. It was really wonderful to be here, and I'm glad that I got to hear some of your questions. And just thank you, and enjoy the rain.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye.